An object without any information in a museum doesn't really cast any light on a culture or a people. It just is a beautiful object with no information. But if that goes back to the people whose ancestors created it, it takes its place in a cultural tradition that stretches thousands of years before anybody showed up. So it's even though people don't necessarily see the value of it, I somehow think we should do it anyway. Because if it were our things and our families, we would want it back.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Tyke.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities. I don't know how much time you spend on Reddit. Probably none.
You know what's funny? I have a Reddit story to share with you after you're done saying this.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God. Did not expect this turn.
I was literally about to make reference to a Reddit post that I was just looking at on my computer before we walked down the hall.
Mitch, we're not paying you to look at Reddit on company time.
I'm aware of this.
Is it about how Reddit is preoccupied with the slicing garlic so thin that it liquefies in the pan?
No, but that sounds intriguing.
That's a thing from the movie where the guys are in jail and the narration from Henry Hill is about how Paulie would had a system for cooking pasta and would slice garlic so thin that it would liquefy in the pan. And growing up, I always thought, like, of course that is real. That makes sense. These guys are gangsters and they're Italian. They know how to cook pasta. But I guess that's not really a thing. What were you going to say about Reddit?
Because I was checking up on soccer news this morning, international soccer news, which would be football news, as the kids say in Europe. I was looking. There was a Reddit post that included a video of a team I enjoy in Germany, SC Freiburg.
This has nothing to do with Goodfellas.
Nothing whatsoever to do with Goodfellas. And the players on this team gave their names in sign language.
Oh,
which was pretty cool because they were doing this for the benefit. There's a deaf fan group of this team.
Yeah,
and of course the first thing that I did was try to turn up the sound, and then I gave myself a dope slap for that very dumb thing to do.
As our friends in the South say, "Bless your heart, Mitch."
So Ethan. Well, let's just talk a little bit about this interview that we have, and the strange way that we came to find our guests this week. And
how did it happen?
Well, as we've talked about in past episodes of Northwards, we were in the middle of a fall fundraiser here at NCPR.
I heard about that. Was it successful?
It was very successful, although I should note that the Northwards ball caps are still available for a contribution of $120 or $10 a month. Contact ncpr.org/give if you're interested in one.
Here's the thing about the fall fundraiser. It was so busy and it was so manic and wild for so long that the day that it was over, I felt like I hit a wall.
Well, here's the thing about the fall fundraiser. For the very same reason, our news director here, David Summerstein, came into my office. He was on vacation as the fundraiser ended, and came into my office, I think it was on Tuesday of the week that we're recording this, and the first thing he said was, "Congratulations," and I said, "For what?" And I was thinking it was like some reference to the Patriots winning, and he's like, "The fundraiser, dude." I'm like, oh, I feel like that was a month ago, but it was just last week.
It feels like the whole, the on-air portion of this is inside baseball. Does anybody care? But the messaging that our listeners hear only lasts for a week and a half, sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks. But for us, behind the scenes, we're planning it for months and months and months. And it takes its toll. I'm older now.
Well, and I ask authors about this sometimes because they're in the position of having to talk about a book frequently that they finished writing like 2 years before, and then it spent a year in editing and publishing, and
it might have taken them 5 years to write the thing.
Right. So it's got to feel a little bit weird to talk about a book that was like filling your head 5 years ago, but at this point they're on to, the next or even 2 books down the road.
Right. When we recorded our last album, I was just like so sick of the music because the way that my band has always recorded is we record live in the studio, which is sort of an antiquated way of performance. Like if,
Right, you should use AI.
Well, we should use AI, but like basically like all of the history of recorded music from like the invention of the phonograph up until like the 60s, it was mostly like music performed live in the studio, and then even beyond the 60s. And we never had the money to go track by track. So we were just like, we need to learn these songs super well, super tight, so that we can get into the studio and bang the entire album out in a day or two and then be done with it. So we would rehearse the hell out of all of our music. So by the time we got into the studio, it was like, okay, I am so ready to be done with this music. And of course, like then when you hear it back, it's like, oh, that's what I was working for. I'm really proud of this finally. It's all a labor of love, but it's exhausting.
Right. And you'd been writing those songs for a while and
Right.
probably writing songs about things that happened to you even further before that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so by the time somebody actually hears the music that's been recorded, it's part of your distant past.
Yeah, absolutely. Which can tie nicely into today's topic, Mitch, because we are talking about a person who is returning things.
Yeah, that's
from the
absolutely
distant
right.
past.
So during the fundraiser, a very nice woman named Katherine Scott called because she had recently discovered NCPR. She lives about, I think it's like an hour from Ottawa, out in rural southern Ontario, somewhere sort of in the Great Triangle that's made up by Ottawa and Smiths Falls and this very little rural town where she lives. And
Smiths Falls, no relation to the Smiths.
Not as far as I know. As fall the Smiths, so falls Smiths Falls. Anyway, so she called to take part in our fundraiser, but then she got to talking with our development director and happened to mention one of the things that she does in her retirement in this little town, and that is work at, if you think that libraries in the North Country are small, the library that she describes where she volunteers is like the thumbnail of small.
It's like literally like the size of this studio that we're recording in.
Yeah, and the museum that's attached to the library is basically a closet.
Right, and listening to her describe this museum is not like any other museum you've ever heard of. Like even the smallest museums that are devoted to like a single person or a band or whatever, like usually are comprised of like 4 or 5 or 6 rooms. Sometimes it's 2 levels, but this is literally just a closet, and there's no heat,
right. and no real, not until just recently, no electricity.
Right, and so I was thinking, how is this a museum? But it certifiably is.
Yeah. Anyway, so she got to talking with our development director, Lizette, who passed along Katherine's name to me because she thought it sounded like an interesting thing that she was doing, and what she's doing is helping this museum, basically taking up the effort to repatriate some First Nations Indigenous objects. First Nations, as they say in Canada, Native American, as we say here in the United States, and some of the objects that were collected were collected by. You'll hear about the guy actually who brought them to the museum in the first place. Some of them are going to tribes in the United States, some staying in Canada, but it's really the story of how one person just doing something can make a difference.
And most people think that they don't have the time or the energy or the wherewithal to take on such a huge like undertaking and make a significant difference in their community or their culture. But really, all movements are pretty much started by one person, she talks about how she has a background in archaeology but is not a museum curator. And why should she be the person to return these artifacts to the cultures to which they belong?
Because somebody needs to.
Because somebody has to.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And the other thing that she says is, and I think that comes through in the interview, is that if she can do it, any of us can do it.
Absolutely. Another cool thing that she talked about was the smudging ceremony that was performed at the museum that I thought was really cool.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Well, you'll hear about it, but at one time my Mohawk friend came to my house and performed a smudging ceremony at my house that I shared with a bunch of friends with some sweetgrass. And it was not something that I was privy to before, but it was a really touching way into his culture that I was totally unaware of. Yeah.
Well, so with all that in mind, let's just get to it. Katherine Scott joins us by phone from Ontario. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your interest.
How was it that a small museum in such a rural place came to be home to a significant collection of First Nations, or what we in the States might call Native American artifacts?
So in the mid-1900s, about 1947-48, the new Dalhousie Library was built in the back of the Watson's Corners Community Hall. And after that, descendants of the Scottish settlers in the area started donating their agricultural and domestic items to build up a little museum. And one of the descendants of the settlers was a gentleman named Donald Munro McNichol, and he traveled around the United States and Canada as part of his job as a radio telegraph engineer, but he was also really interested in Indigenous people and their culture, and he brought home, he acquired for himself through purchasing or gifts 41 artifacts from First Nations people. And then he donated them to the museum in around 1948, and they became part of the collection.
Well, and this is really, if I understand right, a pretty small museum. I mean, set the scene for us a little bit. Tell us about the Dalhousie Library and Museum.
Yes, it's very small. It was established in 1828 by the Scottish settlers. They set it up mostly with books that they brought with them, so they were very few. And then in 1829, they petitioned Lord Dalhousie in Scotland to be a patron, and he sent them books. And so we still have the original Scottish settler books, and we have the original books sent by Lord Dalhousie. And then over the generations, the volunteers made a concerted effort to build a library for the area, because the whole point of they first started as a St. Andrew's Philanthropic Society, and the whole point of building the library was to provide education and enlightenment to the community, and so that was what they were aiming at. And so we're very small. Like I say, we're in the back. We're a very small 18 by 18 room in the back of the community hall. We're very grateful to be in the hall. I think there's 7 people now on the board. We're entirely volunteer run, and everybody sort of does the best they can to do as much as they can.
But for people whose idea of whose image of a museum is the Smithsonian or the Museum of Civilization or any of these large museums, this is not a place that has a hermetically sealed vault to keep objects.
No, we don't have any of that stuff. We just recently got a couple of electrical outlets in the room. We haven't had any electricity. We were able to turn on a light, but we didn't actually have any outlets or anything in the room. There was no heating. We have 4 cabinets that were built by the volunteers, but they aren't sealed. We have no climate control or anything like that. In 2023, a bunch of us got together to revitalize the library, and we cleaned everything and raised some money and renovated it so that now it's all nice and clean with new gyprock and all that kind of stuff, but we still have no heating, and we still just have homemade cabinets. We're hoping this year to be able to get some heating in to the room, but it is very small and it's very basic, and like I say, we don't really have any overly qualified. We have no professional curators or professional anything. We're all just volunteers doing our best to do what we can to preserve the little collection that we have.
Sure. And so these are, you said it was 41 objects originally, correct?
41, yes,
Yep.
41 First Nations items.
Had they been on display? Had people been looking at them over these last 70 years or so?
They were on display. They were in a cabinet with the, kind of with the rest of the artifacts. But in 2023, the library had been kind of neglected for about 20 years, mostly as a result of volunteers getting old and dying, and new volunteers being hard to find. So they haven't been looked at for about 20 years. But in 2023, when we got a new board together, we decided, times had changed. We have a movement in Canada called the Truth and Reconciliation Movement, which you've probably heard of and your listeners are probably aware of. And so we decided, it was time to give back the artifacts. They didn't really belong to us, and they were probably better off with the nations where they originated, and we felt we really had no right to them, and so we should return them.
Well, and so how have you been going about doing that work?
Well, so largely I was volunteered to be in charge of the repatriation program. I think there were 3 of us at the time on the board.
They sometimes use the term voluntold.
Basically, I have just been Googling the various nations and trying to find headquarters, and I've been learning a lot along the way. I had no idea that there was such a thing as a tribal historic preservation officer, which now I know. I've been contacting government departments of Indigenous Affairs. I have been tracking down cultural organizations and cultural resource organizations, and basically just bothering people until somebody would get back to me and say, yeah, I'll look at the pictures and see if we want them, and then that's really how I've been going about it. It's taken a few years to do, but it's definitely worth it. And I actually just received confirmation today from the chair of the board that 2 more packages have just gone in the mail, one for the Eastern Shoshone in Wyoming, and another one in Fort Washakie, and another one is going to the Cherokee Cultural Historic Museum in North Carolina, Murphy, North Carolina.
How much information and maybe interpretation was there surrounding these objects? How much did you know about them that this collector, when he donated them to the museum, was there any kind of interpretation with them?
No. The only thing in the cabinets, there were labels on them that said things like Sioux, Montana, and Blackfoot, Saskatchewan, Cree, Saskatchewan, stuff like that. So, and then there was an original inventory list that basically had the same information on it. It listed the object name, the tribe or First Nation that it belonged to, and a province. And even sometimes it didn't have a province. It said Ottawa River. I mean, the Ottawa River is a long river. People moved around, right? So while he might have gotten something in Saskatchewan, it doesn't mean it was made in Saskatchewan, because people may have made it, on the U.S. side and then traveled to the Canadian, what is now the Canadian side, right? So it was, we had basically no information.
What sorts of objects are these?
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so we had beautiful leather items. We had a doeskin vest that was heavily embroidered, belonging to the Cree, and moccasins, beaded moose hide gloves. From the Sioux, there were, a heavily beaded belt and a feather retainer and just beautiful, beautiful beaded objects. We had a war club from the Abenaki. Now, the chief, Don Stevens, said he thought that was made for the tourist trade because of the particular paint on it and things like that. But it was kind of a scary thing, made out of, looked like talons. We had a couple of items of war. We had quite a few pipes. Oh, gosh, we had 9 arrowheads from the Cherokee people that have just gone back, stone arrowheads. So there was quite a wide variety of beautiful, all handmade, of course, items.
And there's not a fear that these were taken under suspicious circumstances. These were objects that were likely given to the collector as he went on these travels, right?
Yes. To the best of my knowledge, this gentleman would never be involved in anything of that sort. The writing that I have read of his shows a great respect for First Nations people, and he would either have bought it. There are a couple other items that look like they belong to the tourist trade, like people made them to sell, right? Mm-hmm. And otherwise, he would have received them as gifts.
Are the First Nations and the tribes, have they been, when you have been able to reach someone, have they been surprised to hear from a tiny museum in Ontario?
Yes, quite shocked. In most occasions, hard to believe that it's really happening, that somebody is contacting them. But overall, very welcoming and grateful to have things come back to them, we understand that people would really like to have had a lot more information about where they originally came from, but they're happy to have them back nonetheless. And once, we sort of straighten things out, kind of what's going on, and that they aren't related to burials or human remains, people are really, really happy to have them back. And we had a visit from the Mohawk of Akwesasne, who came up and had a small smudging ceremony here over the artifacts that we returned to them. So that was just wonderful, and they were very kind and brought us a woven basket from black ash as a thank you gift. So it's just wonderful.
What was the ceremony?
It's called a smudging ceremony. Where they burn a sweetgrass and they say a prayer over the artifacts to welcome them back into their traditional culture. And as it was explained to me, they are explaining to the objects why they are being moved and kind of what's happening, and they're asking for blessings and things like that. It was in the Mohawk language. It was quite moving.
I was just going to say, it sounds like it must have been a moving occasion and a rare opportunity for this transfer to take place in person.
Yes, it was. Mostly things are going, other than that, mostly things are going in the mail, right?
Which is not easy at the moment, considering the changes in the way people are able to mail things from Canada to the United States, and also because your postal system has been on strike for some time.
Yes, we had a couple of things. Well, the last two packages have sort of been waiting for things to clear up, but fortunately our Postal Service has gone back to work on a rotating strike, which means that we can mail things. It just might take longer. And also we have a little bit of rigmarole to go through because of the tariffs. So instead of just going straight to the post office, we now have to fill out declaration forms and things like that, and then go back to the post office. But we are able to mail them.
Oh, that's great. You yourself have something of an archaeology background, is that right?
I do, yes. I got my Bachelor of Archaeology at Memorial University in Newfoundland, and I worked there for quite a few years on paleo archaeology sites. They all predated like 4,000 years ago, right?
Well, and I wonder if there's a part of you, as someone who was involved in looking for objects in your work in archaeology, is there a part of you who understands why some people, are reluctant to hand over objects like these from a museum, like the idea that, that people think that they might help tell a story that people might not otherwise hear?
Yes, it's very complicated. Everybody feels differently about it. I personally feel that if we have ancient items that came from other people that we don't really have a right to, then if those were my things, if they belonged to my ancestors, I would really want them back. Like, I would want them to come back to my people. If an object without any information in a museum doesn't really cast any light on a culture or a people, it just is a beautiful object with no information. But if that goes back to the people whose ancestors created it, it takes its place in a cultural tradition that stretches thousands of years before anybody showed up. You know? So it's even though people don't necessarily see the value of it, I somehow think we should do it anyway. Because if it were our things and our families, we would want it back.
In a way, it strikes me that the story of you and the others with the museum returning these objects becomes a story that the museum itself can hold on to as well.
Yes. Like I say, we're just a very few people, but the support for the repatriation project is strong. Everybody I speak to about it is very happy that items are going back. It's just wonderful to be able to actually do something as a private individual, you know, that's not really part of a big museum and not part of large organizations, right? We're able to do this.
Yeah, I was thinking it must feel pretty good for someone who was a volunteer on a board at a tiny museum in a tiny place to be able to have some impact on making the world better for some of these First Nations who've had their objects disappear over the years.
It means a lot to us. It does. It really means a lot to us, and we're so pleased that people are accepting them back because, you know, you might quite reasonably expect people to say, you know, yeah, you don't know anything about it, you don't know where it came from, I'm not sure why we would want it. But we're very pleased to be able to be making a contribution to restoring relations, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Katherine Scott, thank you so much for your work. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Oh, thank you very much, Mitch. I really appreciate it. Everybody is welcome to come and visit the library. It's open in the summer, so if people are interested in the Scottish Library, we're here, and we'd love to see you. And thank you very much for your interest.
Oh, you're welcome. And yeah, the original books from Dalhousie sound like they would be interesting in and of themselves.
Oh, they're wonderful. And we've just been able to get some restored. Everybody's welcome to come to the library.
Katherine Scott joining us on the phone from Ontario, talking about her effort to repatriate objects from this tiny museum in the little town in which she lives, and hoping that it inspires others to think about the objects that might be in their closets or their attics or their basements and maybe do the same.
And a good reminder, too, that every single person is capable of taking on great things and making a difference. That doesn't necessarily have to be returning like cultural artifacts to Indigenous people. It can honestly just be like having a conversation with a stranger that they didn't know that they needed, and you learn something about them too. Like that's important as well. Every single person is capable of good things.
The people that were getting off the elevator this morning,
yes,
as I was getting on the elevator at NCPR, did just that when they looked at me and they said, "Oh my God, you're so young." We should all start our day like that. Thank you to the two strangers who are getting off the elevator. Because by golly, I did not feel so young.
I had that feeling yesterday. I was hanging out at my mom's house, and I had my feet up on the edge of her couch, and I had one leg over top of the other leg for just a little bit too long, so that it applied pressure to my knee. And then when I brought it down, it was the most pain I've ever been in my entire life.
Did it make an audible crack?
My knees crack constantly, Mitch.
Ethan, you can do us all a big favor and tell us who produces Northwards every week.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Teich, with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Doyle Dean is our production manager. Bill Hanel is our director of digital services. And Caitlin Kelly is our social media extraordinaire. You can support this show and listen to more conversations by visiting ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.
My neck cracks just about every morning.